If you've spent your life feeling inexplicably tired, not just physically, but deep down in your soul, you might be carrying a burden that wasn't meant for you. A burden called parentification. It's the psychological phenomenon where the lines between child and adult blur, forcing a young person to function as the caregiver, the mediator, or the therapist for their own parents or siblings. It is a profound role reversal that robs a child of their innocence and development. This isn't a story about responsibility. This is a deep dive into the lifelong tragic cost of a stolen childhood. We will uncover the 7 core signs that you were a parentified child, but more importantly, we will dissect the 4 main areas of your adult life: your relationships, your career, your mental health, and your very identity that are still paying the price. If you are finally ready to put down the weight you never asked to carry, stay with us. This is the roadmap to reclaiming the self you lost. To understand the solution, we must first define the injury. Parentification is not merely a child helping out with chores. It is a chronic and systemic failure of the parental figure to meet the child's needs, instead relying on the child to meet their needs. This is an abuse of power, often unconscious and deeply damaging. The 2 faces of parentification. Psychologists define this trauma as having 2 primary forms, and many experience both. 1. Instrumental parentification, the physical burden. This is the more visible form. It involves the child taking on age-inappropriate physical, logistical, or financial tasks. They become the primary caregiver for younger siblings, manage household budgets, pay bills, handle administrative tasks, or even take on part-time work to support the family. While this fosters early competence, it exhausts their bandwidth for essential childhood activities like play and exploration. The message they internalize is, "I am valuable only for what I do." 2. Emotional parentification, the invisible burden. This is often the most insidious and damaging form. Here, the child becomes the parent's primary confidant, therapist, or emotional regulator. The child is exposed to inappropriate adult issues, marital stress, financial anxiety, or the parent's deep emotional breakdowns. They are tasked with calming, mediating, or distracting the parent. The child learns to monitor the parent's mood constantly, a state called hypervigilance, and sacrifices their own emotional life for the sake of the adult's stability. The core message here is, my feelings are a threat to my parents' survival. I must suppress them. The crucial distinction, healthy maturity versus traumatic role reversal. It is vital to distinguish this from healthy responsibility. Healthy maturity involves age-appropriate chores, delivered with clear expectations, praise, and the absolute freedom to fail. The child feels useful. Traumatic parentification, however, creates an atmosphere where the child feels indispensable. They feel that if they falter, the family system will collapse. That sense of existential threat is the difference between a resilient child and a traumatized one. These 7 signs are the direct behavioral and emotional echoes of the parentification script played out in your adult life. Sign 1. The allergy to acceptance and hyperindependence, the fear of failure. The parentified child learned that the only person they could truly trust to get things done was themselves. Reliance on others felt like a gamble, a potential prelude to disappointment or abandonment. As an adult, you reject help, often harshly. When a partner or friend genuinely tries to care for you, you feel discomfort, suspicion, or even outright anger. Scenario. Example. You insist on assembling furniture alone, even when struggling, because the idea of asking for assistance triggers an unconscious belief that you are exposing a weakness that will be exploited. Sign 2. The need to fix others, the repetition compulsion. You are a magnet for broken wings. You constantly engage in relationships with people who are demanding, unreliable, or emotionally needy. This isn't true love or altruism. It's a desperate attempt to replay and master the childhood script. If you can fix your partner, you can symbolically fix the chaos and instability of your childhood home. This is the cycle of the caretaker, where your identity becomes fused with your role as a rescuer, leaving you drained and resentful when the other person inevitably doesn't heal on your timeline. Sign 3. Chronic guilt. Around relaxation and rest, the internalized taskmaster. For the parentified child, leisure was a luxury, not a right. Rest was the time when problems could emerge. You learned your value was inextricably linked to your productivity. As an adult, you cannot sit still. Your internal monologue is constantly criticizing you. You should be working. You should be cleaning. You are wasting time. This leads to an exhausting pattern of perfectionism and over-functioning. You confuse your self-worth with your work ethic. Sign 4. The pressure of hyper-control, the illusion of safety. If you grew up in a volatile environment, control became your shield. You try to control every variable, schedules, travel plans, group decisions, and even the emotional responses of those around you. This is an attempt to create the predictability that was absent in your youth. Psychological impact. This constant state of alert leads to chronic, low-grade anxiety. Any deviation from the plan triggers disproportionate panic because, to your nervous system, a broken schedule equals a collapsed world. Sign 5. Emotional suppression and boundary issues. The cost of peace. To survive emotional parentification, you became a master of emotional containment. Your feelings were not important. The parents' feelings were the priority. As an adult, you struggle to identify or articulate your needs. You say yes when you mean no. You let others cross your boundaries without resistance because you are terrified of confrontation, which you learned was the precursor to family instability or parental meltdown. The cost is high: emotional numbness and relationships where you constantly feel overlooked. SIGS, the quiet, insatiable need for recognition, the martyr's halo. You don't ask for praise, but you desperately need it. You perform acts of silent service, often going above and beyond, then feel bitter when your effort goes unnoticed. This is the internalized plea. Please see my sacrifice. Please validate the child who worked so hard. This passive need for recognition makes you vulnerable to manipulation and keeps you trapped in a cycle of silent resentment, as no external validation can truly fill the emptiness left by the parent's fundamental failure to see you. SIG N7, the cruel maturity of the old soul, the age gap in the soul. You are often told you are wise, grounded, or mature. While you possess incredible empathy and foresight, this wisdom is a badge of honor marked by tragedy. You possess the emotional intellect of an adult, but may lack the fundamental playfulness, spontaneity, and secure identity that comes from a nurtured childhood. You are an adult who carries the world on your shoulders, but somewhere deep inside, a child is still waiting to be allowed to play. If these 7 signs resonate with you, the chronic fatigue, the need to fix others, the guilt around simple rest, then you are already on the critical path to healing. Recognizing the pattern is the most difficult step, and if you find value in these deep dives into psychological truths, please consider subscribing to our channel. Your support ensures that this critical knowledge the maps to our invisible wounds can reach the millions who are still struggling in silence. Hit the subscribe button and let's continue to illuminate the shadows. The signs lead us to the consequences. The parentification trauma doesn't just create behavioral quirks, it fundamentally alters the adult psyche in 4 critical areas. 1. Impact on relationships, the attachment paradox. Parentified adults often present a painful contradiction. They desperately crave deep intimacy but are terrified of it. This tension manifests in predictable attachment styles. Anxious attachment, driven by the fear of abandonment. If a parent could leave, anyone can. They cling to partners, seek constant reassurance, and struggle with trust. Avoidant attachment, hyper-independent. Driven by the belief that intimacy equals disappointment or pain, they push people away when things get serious, seeking physical or emotional distance to preemptively protect themselves from the inevitable leaving. The unconscious script. You often choose partners who are emotionally unavailable or unreliable, unconsciously recreating the emotional distance you are familiar with. This feels safe because it mirrors your childhood normal. 2. Impact on career and finance, the self-sabotage cycle. The parentification script translates directly into the workplace. People-pleasing in the office. You are the ultimate team player, taking on too much work, struggling to negotiate fair compensation, and often getting exploited because you equate your worth with your willingness to be useful. Imposter syndrome. Despite overwhelming evidence of your competence, you constantly feel like a fraud. Why? Because the child version of you was praised for performing adult roles, a role you knew, deep down, you weren't truly ready for. The fear of being found out is the fear of your childhood mask falling off. Financial anxiety. If you manage the family budget, money is linked to security and survival, not abundance or ease. This can lead to either hyper-hoarding of resources or reckless spending, fueled by a need to finally parent your inner child with material goods. 3. Impact on mental health, the somatic cost. Emotional suppression has a physical toll. The emotions you didn't process as a child don't disappear, they get lodged in the body. Chronic anxiety and hypervigilance. Your nervous system is perpetually stuck in fight or flight. This is the lifelong consequence of constantly monitoring your parent's mood. This state leads to persistent muscle tension, sleep disturbances, and a feeling of being wired but tired. Depression. When you are constantly giving without refueling, the well runs dry. The deep, chronic sadness is the mourning for the childhood you never had. Physical manifestations, somatic symptoms. The inability to voice emotional pain often appears as physical pain, unexplained stomach issues, chronic headaches, or autoimmune flares. The body speaks the language the mind was forbidden to use. 4. The link to vulnerable narcissism and codependency. In some cases, the deep childhood wound leads to more complex personality adaptations. Vulnerable, covert narcissism. The intense shame of not being good enough to save the family is shielded by a fragile, hidden grandiosity. This manifests as a victim mentality, resentment toward others who had easier lives, and a deep need for subtle yet constant attention to prove their unique suffering. Codependency, the belief that you can only survive by being attached to someone who needs you. This is the ultimate expression of the caretaker role, where your self-identity is dependent on the other person's neediness. Healing this requires dissolving the codependence and building a self-worth that is independent of utility. This trauma is not a life sentence, it is a map. Once you know the terrain, you can navigate it. Healing is about becoming the parent your inner child always needed. Step 1. Validation. Name the trauma, end the shame. The first step is the simplest and hardest. Acknowledge that it wasn't your fault. You were a child, forced into an adult role. The shame belongs to the adult who put you there, not to the child who was forced to survive. Say it out loud, I was parentified, and that explains my adult struggles. This validation is the foundational stone of healing. Step 2. Embracing play and rest, reclaiming the lost childhood. You must consciously insert the developmental stages you missed. Schedule rest as non-negotiable. Engage in non-productive play hobbies, games, or simple silliness that serves no purpose other than joy. This teaches your system that value is not tied to output. Step 3. Radical boundary setting, the power of no. Boundaries are the ultimate act of self-parenting. Start small. Say no to a minor request that you would normally accept out of obligation. Feel the accompanying anxiety and sit with it. Recognize that the anxiety is the old script trying to take over. By holding the boundary, you are teaching your adult self that the world will not collapse if you prioritize your own needs. Step 4. Seeking healthy interdependence, the safe hand. Challenge the hyper-independence. Practice accepting small favors. Ask for help with a simple task. This is the slow, deliberate work of teaching your nervous system that it is safe to rely on a chosen and healthy network of people. True strength is knowing when to ask for a helping hand. You survived the impossible. You took on the weight of the world and you made it to the other side. Your resilience is undeniable. But now, your job is not to survive. Your job is to thrive. The freedom you seek is not outside of you. It is in the simple permission to stop being the adult and finally allow yourself to be the whole, imperfect, and worthy human being you were always meant to be. The child within you is ready to be seen, nurtured, and finally set free. Put down the weight. Your true life is waiting. If you recognize these patterns in your life, know that you are not alone. In the comments below, share which of the 7 signs hit you the hardest, or one piece of advice you would give to your younger, parentified self. Your vulnerability is someone else's breakthrough. Let's create a space of validation and healing together.